Good evening, familia. This is Rafael Collazo, the host of the Found Translation Talk Show, the talk show that stacks truth about politics and today's hottest issues. Thank you so much for joining us on this wee hours of the morning edition of Found in Translation. I believe Elizabeth Noble was the first one to shout me out from Florida. Thank you so much. If I'm not as voracious and what do you call it with loudmouths? If I'm not as loud as I normally am, and I know that's like my signature, be extraordinary, a little too loud for the room all the time, it's because my family's sleeping upstairs. So I'm going to be a little low, not because it's late, because I'm a loudmouth no matter, 24/7, 365. But I do want to be respectful of the fact people are trying to sleep and have to go to work tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining us. There's your host, Rafael Collazo. I'll put the mic a little closer to me for our radio audience and our audio audience. Again, thank you so much for watching. Anywhere you're listening or watching this live on all of our platforms, and for our podcast audience, thank you so much for joining Found Translation anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world, and our radio fam at WPPMLP 106.5 FM. Day one of the convention, people, I had to give you a little something. So I wanted to share with you my observations, a quick summary of what took place tonight. Many of you may not have seen it, so I wanted to make sure y'all know what's going on. Again, there's your host, Rafael Collazo. So today was day one of the Democratic National Convention. You know, when I was a kid, or I guess maybe till 4 years ago, these were mandatory for network television to show 3-4 hours a night for 4 days. And I guess in this modern technological world, when they're not big, money makers with advertisers, they've siphoned it off to social media platforms and to, basic cable, basically. So you may not have caught it if you were watching, a singing competition show or something, or an NBA basketball game. My Sixers. So sad. But nevertheless, so tonight was day one of the Democratic National Convention. Tonight's theme was We the People. So the purpose of today for the Democratic National Convention, the first virtual one, so that was interesting. I'll get into that in a second, was basically they wanted to state the case. It was almost like this week's going to be a trial about Donald Trump, in a sense, a political trial, if you will. Which the basic argument that DNC wanted to lay out today was country's in bad shape because this guy's really bad at his job. And he's bad. Part of the reason he's bad at his job is he's a really bad guy. And part of what manifests itself out of being a really bad guy is that he's real divisive. And we need someone that's not only sort of competent to get out of this mess and let's stop this nonsense. But we have this candidate that, even though he's not perfect, as Michelle Obama so eloquently said herself at the end of the night, some would say far from perfect, but nevertheless, depends how you look at it, is someone that has the experience and confident, and most importantly, which they want to emphasize is, buena gente. He's empathetic. He actually cares about people. You know what? He actually might care that you're getting evicted from your house. He actually might care that you're not getting that $600 in your unemployment check. He actually might care that now your medicines as a veteran or a senior citizen are a week or 10 days late in the mail now. He actually might care about that. And I think overall and that's why he's, the right man for the job at this moment, despite, again, even Michelle acknowledging he ain't perfect, but who is? There's something to be said for that. So that was sort of the theme of today. And so the two questions, I guess 3 questions that were going to come out of this conversation that observers were looking for. First of all, what was this going to be? A virtual convention? Again, political geeks like me love this idea of, 20,000 people being in a big arena and there being all these speeches and all these balloons, flags, and people, with buttons on. We love that nonsense. A lot of people don't like that nonsense. And you know what? I don't think we're ever going back to the other way on some level, or I think this gives us a prelude of what the future's to come. I thought overall, and Democrats tend not to be the best with the message discipline, we were actually to avoid some of the pitfalls of what Democrats, and particularly this Democratic candidate, Joe Biden, would fall into. Not that he was the speaker tonight, but my point is that most of the stuff was taped, was well produced, it flowed. They kept, even the big heavy hitters didn't speak more than, I think Bernie and Michelle didn't speak more than 10, 12 minutes. So there was a pace to it that you're not going to get in a convention. Even Nancy Pelosi earlier today in an interview acknowledged, Well, the good thing is you don't get a bunch of politicians going over their time and talking too much. It kind of gets to the point. So I think for Democrats, and then particularly this cycle, when we have to get our message out there in a much more concise way in this and especially in this modern world, I think it worked. I think it worked, to be honest with you. The second thing that was the question that was on the table was the question of diversity and inclusion. So there were three groups doing a lot of chit-chatting, and I'm a part of two of the three, I guess. Leading up to this, as we were getting sort of, the DNC was trickling out information about who the speakers were, who the lineup was going to be, how long they were going to speak, what day they were going to speak, what order they were going to speak. There were three groups: progressives, youth, and Latinos, that were real skeptical. Is that if this lineup and this extravaganza here, the DNC was going to break down for the next 4 days, was going to really address those groups. And I would say, if I had to give a grade to it, say for the progressives, you kind of got a split decision. You want to argue incomplete because you got to, again, this is the first of 4 days, right? Obviously, Bernie Sanders, and we'll talk about Bernie in a second. Obviously, Bernie being in the mix, and him, I thought, having a great moment, frankly, meant a lot to move that conversation on. But nevertheless, I know my progressives want to hear more, and many of them are going to be left unsatisfied by tonight, despite Bernie's appearance in prominent role. Second group, youth. I think that's the group that probably has the most, should feel, of those three subgroups, should feel the most dissatisfied. It was there were youth faces, there was illusion of young people, but I would have liked to have seen a lot more youngerish leaders. There was some. It was a few, but regardless of the diversity on other levels, I think that young adults and young people, from a voice perspective, could have been shored up. And we'll see over the next few days how that goes. But I think from a young voter perspective and sort of that cohort of young progressives, that Bernie crowd, college, young adult, I think you definitely, can walk away saying, I wanted to see my perspective more reflected. I want to see personally more conversation about that too. How are we going to, and that's kind of my overall premise that I want to share with you in a second. And then the last piece with the Latinos. Well, we complained about this, and I was chit-chatting on this Thursday, and I whined about it with Abe Ambrose on last Thursday's show, and we tweeted about it. Wow, 35 speakers, only 3 Latinos. You're going to give the Queen AOC a minute? And lo and behold, coming out of the bullpen to set up a potential win for the DNC, Eva Longoria, out of nowhere. Eva Longoria, what can I say? Initially, it was said that she was going to be the host or do an intro. I don't think anyone knew she was going to actually host this bad boy for 2 hours. What do I say about Eva's performance? Part Emmy host, part cable news anchor on the weekends, part weather woman in San Diego. Different, professional, obviously, telegenic, looks wonderful on television and presents herself well. But it did come off a little different. But again, we're in a different age. And maybe the Democrats are finally learning this isn't, the presentation of this stuff is more important than maybe we want to acknowledge. Even President Obama, the most telegenic president we ever had, certainly since Kennedy, oftentimes didn't like to show off about his accomplishments. And that hurt us in 2016 because people didn't know, and the messaging wasn't clear about the benefits of the Affordable Care Act and other things that the administration had done for the last 8 years preceding Trump's victory. So, the Latino argument was a little muted because, of course, we only had one real main speaker, Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, the Nevada senator, not particularly well known, very substantive, not particularly exciting. And of course, the Community Act leader, Kristen Urquiza, who spoke very passionately about her father dying of COVID-19 and the reasons that basically Trump's incompetence in messaging, she believes, and her family believes, led to him sort of putting down his guard, unfortunately passing a few months ago. And you're listening and watching Rafael Collazo here in Found Translation Talk Show, which you can find on all social media platforms at FIT_talk show. Let me put the social media handle here. So y'all need to follow the movement here. Talking about DNC Day One, Evil Longoria surprise performance. It's a Latino piece, from a a diversity perspective and having a face to this conversation. Eva got more face time than Joe Biden during this thing. And by the way, Joe's appearances were pretty strong. There was a round table, and they're using him strategically. But nevertheless, I thought, it came off fine. In terms of other highlights, one of the things that I thought as the evening evolved was that I thought the messaging, the optics were good. And I think I do want to mention something about tone. And this may be something, again, my progressive people don't like. But I think I wanted to analyze this for people. There was definitely and Democrats are known for this traditionally, is that in stating the case against Trump, and I thought they did a decent job, is that there was a clarity around these issues. So they weren't shying away. Look, Eric Gardner's mom spoke. Floyd's brother spoke. There were DACA, recipients that spoke. So there wasn't a shying away from some of the more sensitive issues related to people of color as part of the larger coalition or being front and center of the coalition. But at the same time, there was definitely a focus to couch these issues thoroughly in a matter-of-fact tone that would minimize any sense of this being a tribal fight in November. So you didn't hear phrases like white privilege tonight. You didn't hear the word heteronormative. Michelle Obama said everything but the word Karen, but broke down the issue with Karens exquisitely, but didn't go there, and nobody went there. Now, some would say, that's sure shying away from the issue. That's watering down our message. But at the same time, I would say, we are going to need some moderate people here. And I think that did go with the theme of unity, which is part of Biden, because while some of us would want more of a strident, almost polarizing figure, if that makes sense, that's not who Biden is. So on some level, the message does have to go with the leader. So in terms of as the evening evolved, again, good messaging, laying out the issues, not shying away from them. You had kind of the, people you would expect to speak. I don't know anyone thought Gretchen Whitmer should be vice president. She was interesting today. I see an SNL skit in her future in her honor. I thought Bernie Sanders really began the substantive conversation today in really laying out the issues that are at stake. And I thought it was Bernie Sanders, one of Bernie's finest moments. Let's give Bernie a little shout out, because look, even though he doesn't look super interesting in his picture, I thought Bernie Sanders, again, this TV studio environment where it's very difficult to generate a lot of energy. And maybe they'll tighten it up in the production over the next few days with music or something. There needs to be no noise somehow. But I thought Bernie Sanders brought more energy than most of the other speakers. And he didn't look like he was saying a speech. He was saying something that was at the core of who he is. And so I thought Bernie laying out the issues he cares about and the issues at stake in this election in a way that was sort of passionate, and not like studio reading from a teleprompter. I thought that Bernie did a real good job, better than he normally would do. Because even Bernie supporters will acknowledge, not the most charismatic guy on the stump, repetitive, gruffy, kind of, same 2 or 3 speeches. Oftentimes you would hear over and over again. So I thought kudos to Bernie, a great moment. And, he deserved that moment. No question about it. He's done a lot for the party and for our country in moving these conversations towards, kind of this new America. So much respect to Bernie Sanders. But, let's talk about the Queen for a second. Let me tell you something. The title of this episode is a paraphrase the great late Fife Dog from my all-time favorite hip-hop group, Tribe Called Quest. When he uttered the phrase, Mayor Dinkins, could you still be our mayor? You'd be doing us a really big favor. Wow. Michelle Obama should be president of the United States, should she? Thinking about, well, first of all, I mean, what can I say? Michelle Obama, President Obama today crystallized in those 12, 13, 14 minutes. She didn't speak absurdly long. That the problem we have in this country now and how the fakery and I think what was the key line that I wrote down here? You can't fake your way through this job, really laying out in a way that was compelling about the seriousness of being president of the United States and the seriousness of leadership and the consequences. You just can't put anybody in this job because you think it's funny or you think it's a joke or you think because you want to quote unquote shake up Washington. And again, saying it in a way that was substantive, real, but in a way that maybe, someone that maybe did vote for him in 2016 wouldn't feel like they were being finger whacked. And I think that's what the DNC is trying to, obviously, with these Republicans getting all their shine, which I know a lot of us don't appreciate. That's why I want to, we got to balance this out a little bit here. I don't mind them doing that, but we got to bring more young people, more progressive voters in the mix. Para la balancia. That's all I'm trying to say. Is that because we're going to need some of those people, fam. Let's keep it real. Is that, Michelle just lays it out. And I think she, and obviously her husband, this is some of their great skills, is that they lay it out in a way that feels real. It doesn't feel like you're watering down the message for people like us, thinking about, the social justice elements of what she said. I mean, she spoke about the issues of police brutality, the issues of inequality and systematic racism. It was very real and didn't shortchange it, laid it out for what it was, but did it in a way that and the Obamas are almost singular figures in this modern times to do this, that bring more people into the conversation. So kudos to Michelle Obama, the queen. Michelle, it's interesting with Michelle Obama and Kamala Harris, hearing them speak over the last few days. It harkens back, I'm a sports fanatic, I harken back to the last Super Bowl Peyton Manning won. So for my sports, people that are big sports fans, Peyton Manning was one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Probably during the regular season was the greatest quarterback you ever saw. Choked quite a bit in playoff games, but nevertheless had won a Super Bowl in the middle of his career. And then as an older player, he didn't have much left. He could barely throw the ball more than 15, 20 yards. But he was on a Broncos team that was great with everything else. They had great wide receivers, great running back, great offensive line, great superb defense. So he really didn't have to do much at the end of his career to win that last chip. And I kind of feel like this is how Biden's feeling. He's past his prime. He had a run, probably, had some bad breaks, obviously personally, had some tragedies, but politically had some bad breaks. This man once had to drop out the first time he was being president, really in his prime in the late 80s. He had to drop out because of a what do you call it when you write the plagiarism scandal for college term papers. So he caught some political bad breaks in his time going for the big ring. But now he's kind of getting these breaks. This pandemic is kind of helping him because he doesn't have to do as much, and he's not getting as much attention. He can sort of play off the president's shortcomings. And in this case, he's kind of building a team around him of great communicators, great leaders in their own right, like Senator Harris, like Michelle Obama, even like Bernie, AOC speaking tonight as I speak here past midnight. So you're going to see more and more voices, and really it shows the talent of the Democratic Party. I know a lot of people want to see Julian out there, our man Julian Castro. We're still trying to figure out why he didn't get any shine in this whole thing. But nevertheless, so some vestiges of old Peyton Manning, Denver Bronco vibe going on here, Biden. Guy with a great resume, way past his prime. Can we build enough talent around him to put him across the finish line with his resume, with his sort of persona, empathetic, unifying persona being enough for this electorate. So it remains to be seen. Later today, day 2, and I encourage people to, if you don't see it, to continue to, to watch the coverage and all these different social media channels. I would say that so they're really going to get into sort of in terms of trying the case why Trump needs to go, the ethical stuff. Sally Yates, the former attorney general, will be speaking, and other speakers are going to speak to a lot of the ethical issues impacting this president. Obviously, just the terrible management of this COVID-19 pandemic that's cost us tens of thousands of lives and hundreds of thousands of people getting unnecessarily ill and losing, their financial viability because of this prolonged recession, this prolonged economic hardship. All the European and Asian countries with relative wealth figured this out in 3-4 months. It's been over 6 months. I've left my house. So more to come on that. And I encourage y'all to stay engaged in this conversation. The last thing I would say is that I had never been on Twitch. You got to check out this pregame show they're doing from like 8 to 9 on Twitch. There's like musical artists. Dave East was on there. Dougie Fresh was on there. Wyclef Jean performed. So anyway, it's like these little sidebar things going on. Strategies that the DNC, I think, tip my cat to them, are doing to engage younger people. But you're using these platforms, but you're not putting enough young people in the mix. That's my advice to the DNC. Get some more young faces on there. Let's tell their stories. Let's hear their issues, because there's certain issues that for the younger community, and hopefully we'll hear more about this later today, student loan debt and higher education accessibility, education inequality across the board, healthcare access for our young people. Get more of the stories of these incredible dreamers out there. Why don't we hear the stories of people that have been displaced and continue to be treated as second-class citizens, if that, from the island of Puerto Rico, over these various issues? It was alluded to. There was imagery, but we need to hear more of those voices. I look forward to that as well. And I would check out the DNC's website, because there's a lot going on during the day. The Latino Caucus had a 2-hour online session today. It was very good. There's a lot of allied organizations and advocacy organizations, like my day job, Unidos US, is going to be part of an event in just hours with Mi Fe Vota. So get online, look what other activities are going on. There's a lot of interesting conversations and a lot of ways you can plug in and have your voice heard in this conversation. And you're listening to Rafael Collazo on Founding Translation Talk Show. I appreciate a lot of people with their comments. All right, so hold on here. Well, first of all, my homie Barlow Flores. Barlow, you need to go to rest, brother. I love the Peyton to Uncle Joe analogy, bro. Collazo getting a little love from my man Barlow Flores, one of our great friends. It's only day one. Elizabeth Noble jumps in. It's only day one, Julio, and maybe, the way it's going, I didn't even know you were going to be a part of this till this morning, and now he was hosting the whole thing. So yeah, you're right, Elizabeth. The DNC's kind of just throwing the party together. You know how it is. You throw a party, then you realize the morning before, darn, I didn't invite this cousin. I didn't invite. They're going to get mad because they're going to hear about it. So you call them and you say, oh, I forgot you weren't in my WhatsApp chain, that kind of thing. So I think you're right. I think there's some interesting things that can come up here. Let's see. Let's see what other comments we got going on. Hey, Elizabeth, I really appreciate you chiming in here. Very important for Bernie to support Joe while keeping to his belief. That's right. No question. Elizabeth agrees that there should be no more polarizing. Christina Vega, I don't know. Christina's still up. Another Scorpio night owl. Thought today one was strong. It was cool for day one. I generally agree. Yes. The Elizabeth Noble, a Eva Longoria fan. Yeah, she came out of nowhere. It was unbelievable. Let's see here. Yes, Christina Vega, a lot of people again. Christina Urquiza, it turns out, shout out to my former coworker and friend, great friend, Leticia Miranda. Christina, if you're still watching, Elizabeth and Barlow, our friend Leticia Miranda, that was her uncle. She's cousins with Christian Urquiza. So it turns out we have a connect with that fam. So it'd be great to have Christian Urquiza on the show to continue these conversations. So I'm glad Elizabeth Noble, appreciate you, Elizabeth, Barlow, and Christina. Let me see if anybody else has chimed in on the chat here. My dad is watching. How you doing, Pop? Yeah, what else are we going to do? We got to keep it real. So we appreciate everyone watching again. Continue to observe. We're going to have, this was just day 1. Day 2, day 3, day 4. Kamala Harris will be the keynote Wednesday. And of course, Joe Biden gives the closing address. On Thursday, he accepts the nomination. I think Jill Biden basically is the keynote tonight. AOC and a few of the other heavy hitters. I think Bill Clinton speaks tomorrow. Poor Jimmy Carter. Him and Rosalind don't get any love at these things, but plenty of Clintons, plenty of Obamas. But anyway, keep the conversations going. Thursday night, we will have a regular episode at 8 o'clock of our regular Found Translation Bomba Live simulcast. Patricia Campos, she's actually a DNC delegate who was a Bernie Sanders person. So her perspective as a Bernie Sanders delegate at the DNC convention is going to be really exciting and intriguing to hear from her. And we're working on some other very special guests for our DNC primetime edition of Found Translation Bomba Live. Thank you all so much for watching and supporting. I'm going to go to bed now, or try to. I'm so pumped up. Gotta love this political stuff. Keep having your voice heard, family, in whatever arena. Keep pushing the DNC. Keep tweeting them, because obviously it's working. We're getting more and more Latinos at every hour, it seems. So let's keep pushing them for representation for our young people, for different perspectives from the progressive community, which is such a big energizing force in our party, in our community, and really keeping this momentum going of bringing us together. Because look, we don't do the best job of it, but the reality is, and it's hard because I get mad and I get pissed off and I confront people all the time. It's hard, but the reality is, these disillusioned people that put a roulette wheel bet on Trump. We got to find a way to bring some of them over to us and build this, at least try to build this understanding. And it's very difficult. But I think today, I think it was a noble effort. So we'll continue these conversations. We appreciate y'all, family. See if there's any final comments from my hardcore people. Good night. Thank you so much. God bless Jimmy Carter. He takes a licking and keeps on ticking. Teresa Cornejo, Democratic strategist, our friend from Bucks County. She's fired up now. That's what I like to hear, Teresa. Teresa, we need to connect. I ran into you at a hospital the other day, but you were busy and I didn't get the chance to say hello to you. But Teresa Cornejo, one of our great Pennsylvania Democratic activists. Thank you so much for watching Found Translation and listening to the Found Translation Talk Show, and have a wonderful night.